Let's jump in. Here we go. Look at this. Brought to you by Vorse. Unbelievable. Okay. What are we talking about today? Well, here's my promise. Let's start there. By the end of this live class today, you will have a clear framework to set up a new sales rep for success from day one. Now, everybody here, there's a good amount of people who registered for this and are here live. A good amount of you here already value onboarding in some level. I'm going to talk a little bit more about why onboarding is so important, maybe a different angle that you hadn't heard before. But ultimately what I want, since you all are bought into doing good onboarding, is I want to walk you through how I generally structure onboarding for both SDRs and AEs. I'll give you the template of what I use, just so you know. Real quick, there's a good amount of new people here. Let me give a quick run through of my background. My name is Kyle Van Vorse. I've worked with over 80 software and service companies, primarily, I would say probably 70% software companies, all around building a repeatable sales process. So our clients typically come to us when they're building a team for the first time and want to make sure that they do it right, or they have a team already and they are just not seeing the results that they would like to see. We kind of help them fix that. I've written 3 Amazon best-selling books. One's on cold outreach called Cold to Committed. The other is on leading sales teams called the Sales Development Framework. And then the third one and most recent one is on building a repeatable sales process. That's called 16 Steps to Repeatable Sales. If you search my name in Amazon, you can see them there. If you're curious, check them out. And then finally, I've helped our clients sell over 100 million in software and services. Of the venture-backed companies that I've worked with, which is probably low, like 20%, surprisingly low, like about 20% of our clients at this point are venture-backed, maybe 30, but I think it's more like 20. They've raised over 280 million in venture funding since working with us. And I've personally trained well over 1,000 salespeople. I've coached hundreds of founders. I've been in most roles you could be in the sales organization. I started actually as an SDR, worked my way into an account executive role. I've run teams. I've been in board meetings when things are going great. I've been in board meetings that are really not great and things are struggling. So I've been all around the world of sales, and I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of organizations and work with a lot of great teams. So giving you a little bit of my background so you understand the lens that I see this world through, I take a very data-driven approach. And what I've seen is that many companies fail their new sales reps because they don't have a strong onboarding process to set expectations, give them the training they need, and start great relationships from day one. Here's one thing I'm going to mention that I think really matters and not enough people talk about in relation to quality onboarding. If you are bringing on sales reps and you don't have great onboarding, the sales reps aren't going to freak out at you. They're going to figure out how to make it work. But what's going to happen is 6 months into the job, they may run into some challenging moments. And when those challenging moments come up, they can either blame themselves or blame the company. And what I find is during these moments, if they're feeling a little bit frustrated by a difficult sales environment, which often at the early stage it is, even for the best sales reps. I know sales reps that were incredible who went to early startups and struggled tragically, really. And they were top performers making more money than they had ever made in their career. So the environment's really challenging. You don't want those sales reps 6 months in running into a challenge to point at the onboarding and said, look, this company had no idea what they were doing from the beginning. That's the evidence of it. So that's what I want to really put on your radar here. A couple of things. There's a few good components about me. Generally, this is what I see in really good onboarding plans. I'm going to give you a structure right now for SDRs and AEs. Before I start walking through this, and I will give you guys this too. Remind me at the end, by the way. Somebody make that your job. Your job is to remind me to give you this link at the end. So here's something I want to address before I walk through both of these. We're going to do SDR and then we're going to do AE onboarding. The AE onboarding has a lot of similarities to the SDR onboarding. So I'm going to take a little bit longer going through SDR onboarding. And then the AE onboarding, I'm going to go a bit quicker and really highlight the differences. Cool. Excuse me. All right. So this is kind of the onboarding guide template that I would use to build out an onboarding plan. Why onboarding? That's just stuff for a guide. Okay, here's the onboarding guide, like structure. We have an onboarding checklist, and we break it down into week 1, week 2, and week 3. Sometimes we do week 3 and 4. Week 1, you can see here, administrative setup, learn the company, and solidify sales foundation. Week 2 is scrub into prospecting. So you're learning the best practices of doing your approach, whether you're calling into inbound leads. Remember, these are SDRs, right? Or if you're cold calling completely outbound, like we have some best practices there. I want SDRs hitting the phones, outbound SDRs. I really want them hitting the phones day 2 or day 3, just so you know. Our onboarding guide here is we have them hitting the phones week 2 because that's what most people feel comfortable with. I personally like throwing SDRs in as quickly as possible. And then week 3, they're doing more prospecting. They're maybe implementing different types of prospecting. So like at first, let's say you do cold calls and cold email. At first, I'm just going to have the rep focus on cold calls. As they get comfortable with that, we'll move and add cold email. And then receiving some live coaching. Okay, I call it the nest. This is what it was called when I was a rep. This is kind of like a training area. We're learning to flap our wings. All right, so let's break down week 1 here. I have it broken down day by day, and you can see here some of this stuff is relevant to us and the companies that we work with. So you're going to update this for you. But let me just go through this top to bottom here. And this is where you're going to see similarities for the AEs too. So start off one-on-one with a leader, do some admin stuff, setting up their computers and whatnot. Connect with the founder. If the founder isn't the leader, have some time for the SDR or group of SDRs, if you hire in groups, to meet with the founder. An overview of the products offering. Hey, this is what we sell. SDR fundamentals. So this is more specific to us. We have a kind of entire self-guided program for SDRs that we make required for them when they start. And then day 1, they wrap up with their leader. And you're going to notice that's a trend. I want really hands-on leadership when they originally start. Tuesday, now the SDR started to shadow any sales syncs that might be happening. That would be like a team meeting that you do. Maybe you do it a couple times a week. Maybe you do it daily. Do meet and greets where they schedule 30 minutes to meet each member of the sales team, in addition to any marketing or product team members that you feel are relevant for them to talk to. And I want all meet and greets to be completed by the end of the SDR's first 3 weeks. So with people getting busy and stuff, sometimes it's hard to get all of the meet and greets in, and I want to try our best to get it within the first 3 weeks so that they have met everybody. And then you can see the target buyer. This is one of the critical things that I bring up whenever we're doing onboarding, especially with SDRs, but this also applies to AEs. I care much more about the buyer than I do what we're selling to them. It's the prospect, not the product. I want an SDR. I really want an AE too, but I want SDR and AE. I want them to be able to speak the language of the buyer. It's so critical that they understand the world of the buyers, what challenges they run into, how they try to solve those challenges themselves. It is so important. So we have some time there for the target buyer. Then you can see SDR fundamentals. This is ours, right? This is the self-guided course thing again. Then company sales process. We have we have some time set aside where they can learn what the sales process is. And this goes from generating appointments, closing deals, all the way to renewals, upsells, whatever it is. So they have a sense of what the whole sales process is. Sales shadowing. SDR listens to recordings and or shadows live 5 cold calls, 2 discovery conversations, and 1 demo. You can see I'm trying to give them a scope of what the sales process looks like, what conversations come up. A lot of times in cold calls, you don't learn as deeply about the prospect as you do, obviously, in a discovery call, right? So I want them to have a sense of what those sound like. And again, this is starting to indoctrinate them into the buyer, okay, the prospect. And then a day 2 wrap up with the leader. Wednesday, shadow sales syncs, meet and greets. We review competitors on Wednesdays. Which competitors come up? What happens when these competitors come up? Like, how do we navigate these competitors? Then they move on to SDR fundamentals again. This is our, our program here. You should have your own version of this, if I didn't mention that earlier, where there's some kind of structured, hey, this is a good cold call. Here's why it's a good cold call. Here's how you overcome a brush off. If somebody says, hey, I'm not interested and tries to hang up on you, how can you potentially save it? That's the kind of training I want you to do. And then they do some more shadowing, 5 cold calls, 2 discovery conversations, and 1 demo. And then day 3, wrap up with the leader. Thursday, more shadowing, sales syncs, meet and greets, and then messaging practice. So in this example here, this team would be doing, the SDRs would be responsible for cold email. Side note, I don't love that. I kind of built out this as a template for everybody to edit for themselves. And some companies are much larger that, come to our live classes. Some are much smaller. So I try to give you like a little bit of both. I do not like SDR sending cold email. I just don't. A year ago, I was like kind of on the fence about it. 2 years before, I was like, oh yeah, they can kind of do it. That's fine. A cold call is still more effective. Like, I'm starting to become more and more rigid in my opinion on this. With the state of AI today, it just doesn't make sense for SDRs to be spending time on cold email. The conversion is so low. Unless your cold email converts like crazy, they should probably just be cold calling. If you have questions around that, I'm happy to take them. Type in the question now, so at the end of it, I can see it and then I'll answer it. SDR fundamentals again, and then sales shadowing again. You can see a lot of sales shadowing. Why? Because they learn the buyer. Notice how you haven't seen product training anymore. We gave a product overview in the beginning. All I care about is the buyer. That's it. And then Friday, more shadowing, meet and greets, practicing messaging again. So they'll role play the cold call script. They'll do some objection handling. This could be with their direct leader, or if there's somebody on the team that you want them to interact with in that way, they can. More shadowing of calls, live or recordings. And then they get ready to do their first outbound kind of calling, which is going to happen in week 2 in this example. But remember, I do like throwing in SDRs quicker than this. So it's totally fine. This is a template. This isn't like, hey, do exactly this. But you're going to see like these are the things I like covered, and you could compress this a bit if you'd like to. I generally do, by the way. I think probably day 3 is when I get an SDR on the phone, or I try to at least. Not every company's comfortable with that. I get it. But this is what week 1 looks like. By the end of week 1, they've completed the SDR fundamentals. That's the program that we use. Use whatever program that you find best or build one yourself. SDR has foundational understanding of the company, ICP, value drivers, and product. And SDR is certified to begin outbound prospecting on day 1 of week 2. And let's move to week 2. This is my little SDR bird. All right. Week 2. A little bit of different layout. I don't break it out exactly day by day like I did in the first week, because it's becoming more streamlined and more. This is going to be totally based on what the workflow of the SDR you're expecting them to follow is. But you can see in this example here, we start off with checking for replies. So I'm assuming we're sending some emails to prospects. And look, I say I don't like SDRs sending emails. It is okay if they send an email that's like, hey, we spoke on the phone yesterday. Here's the overview that you asked for. I get it. We can't convert every single person we talk to. But anyway, so check for meetings, call to confirm that day's appointments. They won't have any if this is their first week, but this is the rhythm that I'm expecting. Call follow-up lists, and then afternoons, call working leads, call open leads, write personalized emails, prep for tomorrow. Notice how I have emails here all the way at the end. If you're within calling times, I want SDRs calling. I don't want them sending emails at 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock. Shall I continue? You get the idea, right? Like if we could be calling prospects, I want to be calling prospects. We can write personalized emails and schedule them to go out the next day if we have to write personalized emails. So this is the key. This is basically the rhythm that I'm expecting the reps to follow. You'll see that repeat week over week. We do training 3 times a week here. This would be for SDRs only. So I generally, and this would be even SDRs who are currently working, I generally will have 3 meetings or 3 trainings every single week where we listen to calls together. I might teach a concept, etc. So that's something to consider too. If you haven't done that, where you have a structured training routine that you're following, really important that you do that. Real quick note before I move on. you'll notice it says call working leads, call open leads. You might be saying like, what the heck does that mean? I encourage everybody to use lead statuses. So when you have a lead list, an open lead is one that hasn't been called yet. Working means they've been called but haven't answered, and then connected means they've answered the phone. We've talked to the person, but we didn't book a meeting. You want to prioritize those leads. The reason why I do this, and we do a live class just on this topic, by the way. So keep your eyes open for it. It's I'm blanking on what it's called now. If you go to vorse.com/events, you'll see a list of all of the live class topics, and they're all covering stuff like this. The reason why I do that and I break down leads is because brand new leads, we want to make sure that we've called them at least once. Working leads, we want to keep working through and calling them. But we want to take open leads that have never been called and add them to our working list, right? So open to working. Well, over time, we collect a lot of leads that are connected, right? They answer the phone, but we didn't book a meeting. What do we do with them? Well, we call them again. And one of the things that I see a mistake that's made quite often is we connect. We connect with a prospect. They say, hey, I'm not interested, hang up, and they never get called again. It's like, oh, they said, no, I'm very sad about that. And we like never call the person again. It's heartbreaking. That person should be called all of the time within reason, right? What I'm trying to get to here is when you have a list of leads that have answered the phone once before, you've learned something really important about them outside of whatever you learned from the conversation. You've learned that they actually answer the phone. And if you call a cold list out of Zoom info, your dial to connect rate is going to be 5%, probably 4%, could even be lower. If you call a list of people who've answered the phone once before in the past, that's going to be 25%. It dramatically increases. So over time, you want to build up that follow-up list. Okay, so here is the week 2 week 2 and week 3. So I actually have both weeks here. They're following this structure here and tweak this for you, for your process, right? By the end of week 3, SDR successfully executing the company's outbound motion. SDR signed up and attending daily coaching sessions with, it says Vorse in the nest, but with you, like you're training. Obviously you're not my client, but if you were, that's what it would say. All right, cool. Let's talk about account executives here. This is a kind of an important, there's important differences here that I want to highlight, but we're going to go a little quicker through this one. Week 1, week 2, week 3, same kind of structure. This is my account executive bird, by the way. I don't know why it looks so intense, but I love it. Okay, week 1, Monday. Notice how it's all very similar, right? Basically the same. We have an AE fundamentals version. The target buyer, again, this is all very much the same. Company sales process, the shadowing of sales calls, like they're probably going to listen to cold calls too. If they're doing their own cold calling, they absolutely should. If they're just doing demos, you can have them just listen to that. You can see same sort of structure here. Thursday, we have the same sort of structure here. And then Friday, the same sort of structure. We built the template to be for AEs that do their own prospecting. So you're going to notice a lot of that's built in there too. So I would expect them to do their own prospecting in this example. Side note, I like AEs prospecting themselves. I don't like it always being or only being the SDR. So what you do is when you're planning out your team, the whole org chart, so to speak, you're looking at it and you go, okay, what percentage of leads do I expect coming from the SDR versus self-sourced through the AEs, right? Now, on paper, you want it to be like all meetings get generated by SDRs and they keep the AEs at full capacity, right? Like if you go read predictable revenue, that's kind of the deal, right? SDRs book meetings, AEs are just busy closing, and we're not overpaying for them doing their outbound. It's great on paper, but it rarely plays out in real life until you're at a certain scale, and that actually does play out. So at first, I do expect percentage of the pipeline to come self-sourced, right? So like when I was an account executive, I was an AE at a large company, a Fortune 500 company. I started as an SDR there. And when I was an AE, I think it was 20% of my pipeline was supposed to be self-sourced. So I kept making cold calls. I wouldn't make very many, but I kept doing it. All right. By the end of the week 1, they've completed their stuff. You notice it's all the same thing. Here's where things get different. Their weeks 2 and week 3 are very, very different. Here's what we do. We certify different parts of the demo. And the reason why, like I'll throw an SDR on the calls, like to start cold calling, day 3. Why? Because if they mess up a cold call, you just call them back later. They're not going to remember. Okay. It's low stakes. Here, if I'm giving a lead of somebody who's interested in learning about my product or service, our account executive better be prepared to close that lead. Okay. So it's very important we certify that they've reached baseline of where we want them in skill set. So you can see weeks 2 and 3 are all about discovery training, where they observe, prepare, practice. We do this on everything. You observe, shadow, call recordings, learn, prepare, review what you learned, practice a script, or that's practice, and then practice a script, role playing, etc. Okay. Then there's a discovery certification. Once they've passed that, they go into demo training. And then you do the same thing, observe, prepare, practice, observe call recordings, review what you've learned, and like organize how you're going to be doing your own demos, and then practice role playing with a coach on the team or another coworker. And then you do a demo certification. This should be done with the leader of that team, where they pretend they're a prospect, the sales rep does a demo, and then you determine if they're at the skill level you need them. They need to take live calls. And then if you do like proposals, negotiations, I would also follow that same process and have a certification for that. These are almost like gates. If you, with the exception of if you do the discovery and the demo together. So if you do a discovery call and then a demo call, these are like gates. Once they have unlocked discovery certification, they can start doing discoveries. Demo training, then they can start doing training. And you might be thinking, well, what if they don't have the certification for demo training and they do a discovery and then it converts to a demo? This shouldn't take that long, right? Like you're hiring an account executive, like they should have some sense of how to do a demo, right? So I would expect them to be able to complete these pretty quickly. This is weeks 2 and 3, right? So by the end of week 3, they've applied the qualification methodology that's outlined in their, in their onboarding. AE is certified to begin executing company sales process, and the AE is signed up for and attending daily coaching sessions with us. If this is ours, for you, it's yours, right? So that's it. I'm going to give you guys a copy of this. Let's transition to Q&A. I have one thing to give you before then. Let me just grab it real quick. Also, if you want to see the next classes that are coming up, here it is. Okay, Ryan already knows what I'm about to do. All right. Please, before you guys jump off, I don't know how many people have questions. Most people stay for the whole Q&A. Please, I really would appreciate it if everybody here could fill out the survey. It takes like no time. It's very quick, but it gives me a ton of insight on what you guys think about the live class, the topic, and also gives me some feedback. Like, what other topics should we cover? Hey, Kyle, I didn't like it when you said that thing. It annoyed me. Whatever it is, okay? I just really value the feedback, and I try to make these as kind of actionable as possible, and I try to make really good use of your time. There's a lot you could be doing on a Thursday. You're spending it with me, and I take that very seriously. So I ask if you could fill out this survey. I just posted the link in the chat. That would mean a lot to me. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go through questions. All right. Johan, this is not quite a question, but I feel like it was intended to be one, so let's answer it. Super curious on advice on multi-channel approach to stand out in crowded outbound sales environment. Yes, so we were saying this 15 years ago. This has been forever. We've been talking about multi-channel. I remember when LinkedIn was started being used in sales, and it was like social selling everything, and I still see the same messaging. It's like, gosh, how long has social selling been the new thing? Here's the deal, and this goes for everybody. When you're doing prospecting, it is useful to have multiple channels that you're attempting to connect with somebody. One that I find underutilized but overperforms is cold calling. People just don't cold call as much as they used to, at least in my experience. So I always start with cold calls. Then you add other channels, because some people just never answer their phone. Maybe they're email people and you can shoot them an email. Maybe they're LinkedIn people. Maybe they're on Instagram, right? Like, pick and go multi-channel. So since there wasn't a direct question, I'm just trying to give you like an overview of my general feelings around multi-channel prospecting. If you have direct questions, you can ask me about it. I'm happy to answer it. Okay. How are you measuring the KPIs for showing? Is there any reason behind it or just a number you've randomly picked? The KPIs for showing. Marta, I don't know what you mean. But also, side note, do you guys see how smooth it is when I ask people to ask questions before? I just transition right into Q&A. It's a beautiful thing. Oh, foreshadowing. Okay. Yeah, the KPIs for shadowing. Yeah, look, it's kind of an honor system. Like these are brand new AEs, SDRs. Like they're going to want to shadow. So it's just more of an honor system. Another thing that you could do is if you have calls that are good and bad and, almost like a breakdown of why they're good, why they're bad, you can build this out in, a doc, a Notion, whatever you want. Now you can put it all in a doc, and those are the expected calls that they listen to. Another thing that I do that's not on here, but another thing that you guys might want to try is I'll actually have the sales rep listen to a call and write out their feedback to the rep doing the call, and to get them think through, like, what did you like? What do you think could have done better? And then it gets reviewed with the leader. That's a little bit of like an advanced move. So I do like doing it, but use it if it applies to you. Okay. How many contacts do you have on your SDR's prospecting list, and how many calls do they average per week? How many times do they call the same contact a day, in a week? What is your connect rate? Okay, a lot of questions here. Let's tackle all of them. The first question, how many calls do they average? Oh, wait, 1 second. How many contacts do we have on the prospecting list? Great question. It depends is a real answer on the volume of calling that you're doing. But generally, if you're in the 2,000 lead to 3,500, 4,000 lead range, that's enough for like more of a transactional sale. If it's more of like a mid-market sale, you probably want around 1,000. And by the way, I mean like a person to call. So like, let's say you give them a list of 100 target accounts, and there's 5 people that they could reach out to at each one of those accounts. They have 500 leads. That may be enough. That might not be, because it's going to depend on your numbers, really. But usually I want to see around the 1,000 mark if it's more of an enterprise sale. And then if it's more transactional, I can get to as low as 2,000. The second thing here, I don't mean that that's ideal, by the way. That's what we've seen. The second part of your questions here is, how many calls do they average per week? I expect an SDR to make at minimum 100 calls per day. So that's 500 calls a week. If they're making less than that, not good. Not good. And I used to be wishy-washy on this one too, where I'm like, 80 to 100 calls or whatever. There's no excuse not to make 100 calls a day. I mean, it's just madness. It's so funny how people will tell me, but our connect rates are so low. And in the same breath, tell me that their SDR can't make 100 calls a day. Which one is it? Are they spending all this time talking to prospects, or are they clicking the call button and no one's answering? So not to get fired up about it, sorry. Let's go back. Let's center ourselves. I don't want to get bad surveys. But my point here is 100 calls a day is not difficult. Not difficult. I remember clicking a phone number, my desk phone ringing, answering it, then connecting and making 120 calls a day. I remember earning my first wireless headset. And it was like, oh, sweet, I can kind of walk around the office while making calls. It was like incredible. I would go get a Red Bull and then come back to my desk. So anyway, not to get too fired up about this topic, but there's no reason why we can't make 100 calls a day. Now, I said all that. I got fired up, and I'm going to give you an exception. There are some motions that require a lot of manual strategic work from an SDR. The majority of companies are not that. Okay, so as a general rule, 100 calls per day, but I can be talked down if you really want to have the conversation. All right, how many times do they call the same contact in a day? Depends. Inbound leads, we call them 3 times the first day. And when I say we, I mean this is my recommendation to people. I don't actually call our inbound leads. But 3 times day 1, 3 times day 2, then 2, 1, and then once a day for the second week, something along those lines. For outbound, once or twice in the first day. And when I say twice, it's usually because we called the first time they weren't available and we got a time to call them back, but generally once a day. What is your connect rate? On a cold list, you generally see a 5% dial to connect rate. This would be calling mobile phone numbers. If you call brick and mortar businesses, like one of the clients I worked with sold to chiropractors and optometrists. You're calling a brick and mortar business, you're gonna have a 30% connect rate because they actually answer their phone, right? Because they have a front desk. You have to get through a gatekeeper. Sometimes the connect rate will be even higher. If you call independent contractors, for example, they're used to answering their phone. Electricians used to answering their phone. So it ranges widely. But my general kind of take is if we're getting a list and we're selling to non-brick and mortar, it's going to be about 5% data connect rate. Oh, yes. Can I send this onboarding plan over? Yes. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pause answering questions. See, you did great. You reminded me. That's incredible. Onboarding. Make a copy. Okay, cool. So here's the AE onboarding guide. I'm going to give you both. They're separate. AE onboarding guide in the chat. Kayla says, don't apologize for getting fired up about it. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate. Whoops, I pressed enter on accident. All right, that's the AE guide. And then, yeah, there's just certain things that I get a little fired up about. And it just doesn't make sense to me that an SDR can't make 100 calls a day. It's like, what planet are we on? Especially when I was an SDR, we had less technology and stuff. Like, cracks me up. It's like, dude, I was in the role. I know what this role is like. You can make 20 calls. You can make 30 calls in an hour. All right, cool. And that's the SDR one. Thank you for reminding me to do that. I appreciate that, Emily. Okay, cool. Oh, one more thing here too, just before I forget. If you haven't filled out the survey yet, please, I really appreciate it. It helps me a ton. You don't understand. I nerd out about this stuff. I love seeing the responses from everybody. I have a little goal, by the way, to get 100% of the people who showed up to the live class to fill out the survey. I got 80% once and thought I was a wizard. If we did 100%, what's better than a wizard? I'd be a deity. I'd be like Zeus on top of a mountain. I'd feel incredible. Let me feel, please. All right, cool. Next question. Why is the focus less on the product knowledge and more on the buyer? I would not feel comfortable selling something I don't know. Maybe I misunderstood your statement. Yes. I don't know if you misunderstood my statement, but I think maybe your interpretation of what the product knowledge stuff might be a little different. For an SDR, they don't need to know the inner workings of the product. They just need to know the outcomes of the product itself. They will pick up how the product works from listening to demos and listening to discovery calls and seeing it in action. Like, they'll just pick up this stuff. It's not doesn't need to be a big focus. What I see mistake wise is a lot of emphasis on the product, and then the SDR is on cold calls and they're answering all these product questions. If you get a product question on a cold call, that's a signal of interest. I'm going to leverage that and say, like, you know what? Let me set up a time. We'll walk you through it. Right? I do not want the SDRs talking about the product more than they have to on a cold call. For AEs, you have to do product training. Obviously, they're demoing the product, but I still find that there's more emphasis on the product training than the prospect themselves. And ultimately, this is what I want from an account executive. I want them to be able to go to a local meetup group with their buyers, have conversations, eat, laugh, tell some jokes, and nobody know that they're a sales rep. They just think that they're one of them. That's what I really am looking for. So I heavily prioritize that. Everyone's going to learn the product. Some products are more technical, and we're going to have to emphasize product a lot more. But if there's a more technical product, it means the space you sell into is more technical. It's more complicated, right? So we need to treat the prospect with a lot of respect, and we need to be able to speak their language. What software is this webinar being run on? I use StreamYard. I love it. I've tried a bunch of them. This is by far my favorite one. Okay. Is there such thing as too much coaching in the beginning? Do you prefer to let them run with it a bit when they start, or do you prefer to stay with them after each call when they're getting started on the phone? Okay, so this is a great question. So no, there's not. I've not seen too much coaching before. What I like, though, is to be very careful about the amount of feedback I'm giving. So I try to give one thing, especially early on. Sometimes I'll do two, as they're in the role more. But early on, I give one thing. I'm pretty disciplined about that. Oh, next time, do it like this. Now, you bring up something that I think is really important, and I want to make sure that this is covered for everybody. My favorite form of coaching for SDRs is live, and AEs is live. they're doing the call. Right after the call, I say, hey, you could have done this, right? Or maybe you slack them. That breaks some reps, so don't do it for everybody. Just see what they're comfortable with. But I like giving real-time feedback. So if you're a sales manager, you have a sales manager, then what I would encourage you to have them do is spend 70% of their time doing that, doing coaching. And a big percentage of that coaching should be live coaching. It just has such a big impact. And you'll see the very next call, the thing will come up and they'll not do it. And then, wow, it's linked all of a sudden, right? How does onboarding vary based on prospecting into enterprise accounts versus mid-market accounts? We are in cybersecurity, and the calls I've listened to have been a bit too technical for the SDR to handle. Only been here for 2 weeks. Okay. Side note, it's only been here for 2 weeks. Yeah. So look, cybersecurity is an interesting space. I've worked with, I think, 4 or 5. I've worked with 5 cybersecurity companies, and in sometimes the technical conversation is required by the SDR to get the meeting, because there's just simply like, it must work this way or it's not even worth us talking. You need to segment that stuff out. Usually the technical questions would result in the SDR saying, hey, would love to get an answer for you. I've only been here for 2 weeks, so I need to pass you off to somebody else. Do you have some time tomorrow? I can have Jim, Jim will give you a call and walk you through it. I have had SDRs that have been on their second week for 8 months, just because it's so powerful to say to somebody. So that's how I'll kind of speak to this one here. You want to make sure that you understand what is required to get the meeting, and then make sure that the SDR is capable of navigating that conversation in a way that ultimately results in them most likely getting a meeting, but then doesn't have them answering every single possible question that could come up. Okay, hopefully that helps. You have a follow-up there, let me know. Okay, cool. So I gave you guys all that. Thank you. All right. Raluca, I'll give you a break here. She said, oh, I can't fill out their survey because the link is not clickable. I'm on mobile via Chrome. But thank you. Okay, cool. When, if ever, do you have your SDR sending emails? So in some markets where email works okay, I'm fine with SDR sending email. What I would much prefer, though, I don't know. Look, I'd be curious. We have a good amount of people on this call. Can everybody tell me? And if it's 0, just type in 0. You don't need to give me context. How many meetings do you book per month from personalized cold email that's manually being sent? How many meetings get booked from that? And there's a little bit of delay, so let me stall. Generally, for company, and if you're not doing cold email at all, if you're not doing manual cold email, just type like automated and then how many you're getting booked. This is my experience. Okay. So again, I'm not saying this applies everywhere. I try to be very careful with that, because sales, they say sales is sales is sales. And I believe that, but I've also worked with a lot of companies, and like I said, 5 different cybersecurity companies, all of them had a different process. One, cold calling was phenomenal. The other one, cold calling didn't work at all. So anyway, but let's just see here. Virtually 0, very few. It's all about being strong on the phones, maybe 1 to 2 a month. The energy of a live call seals it, 1 to 2. So here we have like a couple of people saying basically none. Some people saying 1 to 2. So the reason why and thank you everybody, thank you for participating here. I was actually hoping somebody here was like, oh no, I've cracked the code. This is very typical. And then an SDR is spending, they're sending 20 personalized emails a day. That takes them an hour, because they're like looking at the person. It's honestly, like sometimes an SDR will spend all day to send 30 personalized emails. And then the result of that is like they book 2 to 3 meetings a month. If you spend 2 hours sending 20 personalized emails, I mean, in those 2 hours, you could have made a lot of calls, right? And those 20 personalized emails aren't going to get you any meetings. You're going to do that for an entire month, and then you're going to book 1 to 2, right? And like nobody here had an impressive number. I mean, a lot of people didn't answer. I mean, it'd be cool if you are somebody whose cold email, personalized cold email is crushing it, please put it here. But I can also point to another piece of evidence for you. How many of you get emails from folks that are like, oh, we can build out a cold email automated system where you're sending 1,000 emails a day? Probably all of us. Just say yes if you have experienced that. We get this type of messaging all the time, whether it's like an email to you or you see it on YouTube or whatever. What is the angle they're taking? Volume. Hey, we're going to set up this crazy system, have 30 different domains, and it's going to be incredible. You're going to be booking, you have to book meetings because we're sending 1,000 emails a day. You're going to book a meeting. You're going to at least book one meeting a day. So what do? You fight it with volume. That volume can't be done by the human. And with AI now, you get the advantage of personalization at scale. So like, just do that. And I'm not saying these are good. I'm not telling you to go email these people back and say like, hey, I talked to Kyle. He's gave me a thumbs up. Don't do that. I think probably most of them suck, but maybe they don't. I don't know. My point here is like, we could also just do that. And odds are it's going to be just as effective as the SDR manually typing stuff in. Right. And if you dive deep enough, I'm very deep in AI right now. I wish I could show you. At one point, I don't know, it's just too self-serving, but I'm building a really, really cool internal tool that uses AI and does a whole bunch of stuff. But it's only stuff that we use internally, like SDR metrics are on there. We're doing like analysis of sales calls too, and breaking down the discovery questions, how well they did the discovery question. We're doing a bunch of really cool stuff with this internal tool that I'm working on. I hired a developer about 2 months ago. We're making a ton of progress. But maybe one day I'll just like show it to everybody, but it's like a little, I don't know. I don't know if it's very valuable to you guys, but it's cool for me. I'm deep in the AI world. Okay. Very, very deep. And being that deep, you see where it's very strong and where it's very weak. And today, the strongest use case is personalizing a freaking email. Right? Maybe not the strongest, but it's up there on the list. It does that pretty well. So let's just do that. Like, yeah, Jason here, just vibe code the thing. Yeah, just vibe code it. Exactly. Like I have one developer who works full time, and just the amount of code he's able to push into production is unbelievable. I'll give you another side note. This is there's no other questions. I'm just going to ramble here for a minute. Feel free to stick around, but this is now just, I'm going on a tangent here. I hired a developer about 2 months ago, and I gave him this little sample project. Actually, no. Here's a cool thing. Check out this. This is the first project my developer did. This took him, we had never worked together before at all. And he's very junior. We use Cursor. I have zero experience with development. I'm a brute force sales guy. I'll bash my head against the wall before I try to code my way around it. Okay, or try to code a door. Check this out. It's called salesreport.ai. This thing is sweet. So this was the first project that we built together, or he built the whole thing. I just kind of we have an hour call every day that we jump on and we talk about progress. He built this in a week. I think total was 2 weeks, but I traveled, so I kind of wasn't as available as I could be. This would take him a couple days probably now. So salesreport.ai, what you're going to see, actually, maybe I'll just share my screen. I'll walk you through it. How much time do I have? Okay. Well, there's no questions. Like, this is what I'm doing. So again, if you want to leave, go ahead and leave. But you might actually find this interesting. So we're going to go to salesreport.ai. This is a web app. So my first version of this I built with Tally, which was the form, which was kind of the first thing you would see here. And then on the back end, I used make.com and like stitched together all these AI prompts. Check this out. This is pretty rad. So you click this and you go, okay, what market do you target? Let's say I target SMB. We do cold calls. We make 11,000 cold calls a month. So let's say this is a larger company. What percentage gets answered? Let's do 4%. How many meetings get booked from calls per month? And I did call only. If you do email as well, it'll ask you the email stuff too. So how many meetings get booked from calls per month? Let's just say 11,000. Let's say we book like 90 meetings. Okay. Next, what percentage of meetings show up? Let's just say we have like a 68% show up rate, win rate here. Let's say it's 12%. on average, which is low, by the way, on average, how many days does it take from initial contact to closing a deal? Let's just say it takes 37 days. Whoops, I lost Chad. Give me a second. Let me go back because I have a call right after this. Okay. And then what's our average deal size? Let's say it's like 8,500. All right, cool. Next here, you put in your email. And by the way, yes, this is going into our, this is now a lead. So if you fill this out, you're a lead. Welcome. Welcome to being a lead. You're all already leads. But okay, so it's generating a report. So look, metrics analyzed, 3 out of 9, 4 out of 9, improvement potential and stuff. This is fake, by the way. We need a little buffer so the AI prompts can run through. Okay. And if you're doing this on your own, it's kind of pretty neat how it works. All right. So it's a CEO growth opportunity. So they can schedule growth audit. This is the call to action. It only does this if you're a CEO. I think it does it if you're a VP too. But if you're not one of those things, it doesn't show you this. Sales process bottleneck report. All this math is done in code. So this was one of the things that was really frustrating is when I built this out with no code tools, I had to use the LLMs to do the math, and the math would come out wrong sometimes. So we coded in all of the math, and it shows you percentage improvements and also revenue improvements. The AI analyzes your strongest metric, your weakest metrics, and then gives you an execution roadmap. This is all generated from AI. We want to improve your cold call answer rate to get to at least 12. Here's how you can do it, and give you a bunch of options. Down here, it says, hey, if you are able to make the improvements that we're recommending here, you'll go from 62,000 in monthly revenue, new revenue, to 200,000, 221% increase. It's bananas. Now I kind of, I use low numbers on purpose because I kind of know how the thing works. And then what's sweet is you would ask questions around your AI's, your report. So if we ask the questions like, am I eligible for a one-on-one meeting with Kyle? No, you're not. You're not a nice person. I can say, what's the summary of this report and this thing? Hopefully this still works. I haven't played with this in a while. Identify bottlenecks, cold call answer rates 4%. Recommendations include improving targeting, scheduling, and follow-up process. Are you planning planning any changes to your sales strategy based on these insights? So this is pretty interesting. I have this, if you just want to nerd out with me for a second, I have this set up to where it'll ask some questions to try to qualify and then maybe book a meeting. Anyway, so this is just a cool thing that we built. And I went down this whole rabbit hole. I mean, it gives good insights. Okay. So if you go and do this, you're probably gonna get good insights. The prompting for this is pretty advanced. I have some really interesting prompting approaches that I take to get some good outputs here, right? And is it always fantastic? No, but usually it gives you some good stuff, right? So for the show up rate, reminder systems, maybe you're already doing that. This is a big one here. Check this out. Shorten the lag between scheduling and the meeting date to maintain prospect engagement. You don't get that feedback from everybody. Hey, why don't we just try to book the meeting the next day instead of a week from now, right? So it gives good feedback. This thing is super sweet. Anyway, I bring this up because this is the world that we're in now. Myself, I'm a big idiot. I don't know how to code anything, okay? I call myself a big idiot, but I'm a relatively sharp guy who learns things really quickly and is good at problem solving, okay? That's all I needed. I took one course on whatever that website's called to teach me how to code Python. I created a script that integrated with it was a local thing. I don't even know how this stuff works. It's crazy. But I was able to create an application, or it was really just a script that connected to Zoom's API, pulled the most recent call transcripts, ran those call transcripts through a bunch of AI prompts to come up with post ideas for LinkedIn and actually write posts for LinkedIn. That was my first little sample project, just so I would feel comfortable that I knew enough to be dangerous. That is deleted. It's not even on my computer anymore. But I built it with my own hands. I did that. I know nothing about code. So then I hired a junior developer. Still me knowing nothing about code. He hasn't even graduated yet. And we started building, and in 1 week, he's able to build something like this, or whatever, a week and a half. And then the internal tool we built is nuts. And the speed that we're building up is incredible. And AI enables all of that. So if there's maybe a summary here that I can give you is we're in this world now where if AI is good at doing something, why would you have why would you have them do it? Doesn't make sense. Like AI can totally personalize the first couple sentences of a freaking email. So just let the AI do that part, and then let that SDR, is a resource that you have, make more calls. Calls move the needle. Do that, right? So again, like for some people, maybe calls don't work that great. That's rare, but maybe that's the case, and maybe you need to be on LinkedIn. I'm not knocking the strategies you choose to use. I just care what works, right? So if doing LinkedIn outreach is working for you, by all means do LinkedIn outreach. Also, like how you use AI and LinkedIn outreach would look very different. Like cold email, you can just automate all that shit, right? LinkedIn's a little bit tougher. You can't just automatically do it. I know there's some tools that can, they're gray area, whatever. Anyway, my point here is like, let's use the tools that we have available to us. All right. Sorry for that ramble. Okay, cool. But what's funny is like no one left the call, so that must have been a decent ramble. All right, based on my sales forecast, reverse engineering all our metrics and backing into the goal, good. I'm hiring 10 SDRs with the hope that 4 will pan out long term. Am I thinking about that right? And how quickly should I get them on the phones? I'm hoping within 2 to 3 weeks. You need to get them on the phone like within the first week. Here's what I'll say. Jason, do you have SDRs right now? That's my first question. Do you currently have SDRs? And I'm glad you did the reverse engineering stuff. I'm going to give you, depending on your answer to that question, I'm going to give you a piece of advice, and then I got a jet because I have another call here. Okay, cool. Let's see. Do you have SDRs already? No SDR. Okay, cool. Full cycle AEs. Great. Here's what I'm going to recommend. And maybe you were already planning on doing this. I would hire 2 or 4 SDRs first, whatever you can tolerate. You can tolerate 10, but going from 0 to 10 is crazy. It's a lot of work, and you might have the infrastructure and the expertise to do that. So by all means, ignore this feedback. But what I would encourage is a group of 2 to 4. I think you're like maybe right on the 10, 4 will pan out. It could be 6 that pan out, by the way. But let's say that you're even right there. You're going to get similar insights from hiring 2 to 4. But here's the more important part. That first group of 2 or first group of 4, you get to be like a lot tighter. You're like a lean, mean team, and you really refine the process. And then the next wave of hiring are way more likely to be successful. So if I were in your shoes, I'd hire 2 or 4, really get the initial process honed in. Like we have something that's somewhat working. Like we feel confident that the metrics are panning out in a way to where it justifies us having the team. And then I would do another big SDR wave, because 10 is a lot of people. So anyway, just my 2 cents. You take it or leave it. You know your business better than I do. Thank you all so much. If you haven't done the survey, please do. I really appreciate it. I'll put the link there. If you're looking for support, building out your sales organization, you plan on hiring SDRs, or you have some that aren't performing all that well, you can go to our website. You can book a call with me. You'll talk to me. Actually, I don't have other team doing it, and I'll be very honest with you if I feel like we could be helpful or not. Like I said, we're always hovering around capacity. I have 1 slot opening up later on in May, and that's it. So you're not going to get a bunch of sales pressure. Let me know if there's any other things that you need from me. If you have any questions, shoot me an email. If you need like a resource, something that maybe you didn't get the link for, I really appreciate it. Like I said earlier, there's a lot you could be doing on a Thursday. You spend some time with me. I'm forever grateful for that, and we'll talk soon. Bye.